Hello, people. Welcome back to US Healthcare Academy. So, guys, just a quick recap. In the previous videos about EDI, we saw how to read an EDI file, basic introduction to EDI. So, if you haven't seen my previous videos, please go ahead and watch it as a playlist right from in the introduction to electronic data interchange. Yes, and we also learned about what an ISA GSST segment is, and about loop 1000A to 1000B, 2000A, 2010 AA, 2000B, 2010 BA, BB. So basically, we saw submitter information, receivers information, billing provider, pay to address, subscribers information, patients information, claim related information. And today, what we are going to see is the claim level information. So basically, when I say claim level, what I mean is the information that is common to the claim. So basically, what that means is whatever information goes in loop 2300 and its sub loop like 2310, 2310B, C, D, E, F. So on a high level, 2300 loop 2300 contains information like diagnosis. Then it contains information about referring provider, rendering provider, service facility location, supervising provider, ambulance information. So let's see what that means. Okay, so loop 2300, the first element, and this segment is HI. An HI segment contains all the diagnosis information. So whatever findings were done by the provider, those diagnosis information goes in loop HI. And guys, remember, on one claim there are maximum 12 diagnoses that can output on one claim. So you will see it is still HI 12. And let me show you how it looks in an actual EDI file. So this is an actual EDI file, and if you see HI segment, and all the elements in the HI segment are composite elements. So if you see, it is BK and then colon BK colon 0340 BF colon V7389. So what does BK mean? BK is a qualifier, or basically you can say the diagnosis code type, which is the sub element of the first sub element of first element of the HI segment. And BK means this is principal diagnosis. So remember, guys, suppose you go to a doctor and you're facing, you tell the doctor about your symptoms, and suppose doctor comes up with couple of diagnoses like viral infection or flu, and some two three diagnoses. I'm just making it up, but the most important one, the which is called principal diagnosis, and BK is a qualifier which shows that this is the principal diagnosis. Now BK was actually in the older version of when we were using ICD-9 codes, ICD-9 CM, but now it is ABK. Okay, so hope that is clear. Principal diagnosis is your main diagnosis, and then the second element, again the first sub element of the second element, which is BF, which means other diagnosis. So basically, that's not a principal diagnosis. So all the other diagnoses will have BF as a qualifier. See, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So all of them will have BF or ABF because we are using ICD-10 codes now. So this will be ABF. So hope that's clear. And remember, one claim only contains maximum of 12 diagnoses. Minimum of one principal diagnosis has to be there, and then all the other second, third, fourth, they are optional. Loop 2310A. So loop 2310A contains information about referring provider. So basically, if you were referred to a doctor, to a specialist or to any other doctor by a referring provider or by someone, then that person's information will output here in loop 2310A segment NM1. And we have seen a lot of NM1 segments, so the structure and the order of the NM1 segment is the same. So first element of the NM1 segment contains the entity identifier code. In this case it is DN. DN means referring provider. Entity type qualifier, one will be a person, two will be a non-person. So in this case it is 1. And then obviously the last name in element 3, first name in element 4, middle name if applicable, name prefix in 6, name suffix in 7, so on. NM108. Okay. And guys, NM108 contains the identification code qualifier. So remember, I told you that NM109 will always contain the unique or universal identifier of that entity. So in this case, because this is a provider, they have their unique number as NPI, National Provider Identifier, and that is what NM108 shows, that XX means National Provider Identifier. There are other identifiers as well, like if you see your state license number, provider UPIN number, provider commercial number, but these identifiers were used in older version when NPI was not mandated, but now it is mandate to send the NPI as an identifier of any provider, and that's the reason these secondary identifiers are no more sent on the claim unless they are required by some payer, then they are allowed. So hope the referring provider's information is clear. Moving on to rendering provider. So guys, rendering provider is the one who actually treats you. So it can be a nurse practitioner, it can be a doctor. So again, NM1 segment, the qualifier for rendering provider is 82, and all the other elements are the same. Entity type qualifier, one for person, two for non-person. So in this case it's a person. Obviously any provider who's treating you has to be a person. uh, Last name, first name, again the same elements are repeated, so I won't repeat it again. uh, NM108, again this is a provider, so their unique identifier is going to be National Provider Identifier, and the 8th element will have XX, which shows that the 9th element is the National Provider Identifier. Moving ahead, loop 2010A PRV segment. PRV segment contains the taxonomy code in element number 3. PXC is just a qualifier for the taxonomy code, and P is the qualifier showing that this taxonomy code is the performing taxonomy code. So performing providers taxonomy code. So taxonomy code is nothing but the specialty code, like which shows the exact specialty of that provider, whether he's an oncologist, whether he's a cardiologist, sports medicine, general medicine, you know. So basically this shows the payer that the right provider is doing the right treatment. So that is the significance of sending the taxonomy code on the claim. Secondary identifier, again guys, it goes in ref segment, remember that, but really not important, because as I told you that after NPI has been mandated, this has phased out, and even if it is required by any payer, now you know about how to read the EDI file. So it is just about reading the technical specifications and applying it. So let's move to, this is loop 2310C, and this contains service facility information. So this is basically place where you have received the treatment, and again it's NM1 segment, so the same pattern follows. First element will contain the identifier code, which is 77, which means this is a service facility. Second will have the entity type qualifier, and obviously a service facility is a non-person, so this will be 2. First name, middle name not applicable, prefix, suffix not applicable as it's a non-person. And again the 8th element will contain XX for National Provider Identifier. So even service facilities have the NPI, because remember guys, each and every provider will have NPI, and service facility is also a provider, so that will have something called as group NPI. There are two types of NPIs: individual NPI assigned to individuals and group NPIs assigned to organizations. Okay, let's move ahead. So service facilities address will be there in loop 2310C segment N3. N301 will have first line of address, N302 if applicable it will have second line of address, else blank. N4 will N4 will always have city, state and zip code. So first element city name, second element state, and third element zip code. Remember, zip code has to be 9 digits. Secondary identifier for the service facility, again the same thing. In some cases, very rarely, if somebody wants to see this, then it is sent depending on payer to payer, else this is not required. Okay, and let's move to 2310D. So what is 2310D? 2310D contains supervising providers information. Now, what is a supervising provider? So suppose you are actually being treated by a a training doctor or a physician assistant or a mid-level provider. Mid-level providers are like nurse practitioners or physician assistants. Those are also called as mid-level providers. So suppose you are receiving, they are treating you. Some nurse practitioner is treating you, but it is important that when that nurse practitioner is treating you, you that they are being supervised by someone, like by a senior doctor or an actual doctor. So that doctor is called as supervising physician, and your nurse practitioner will be the rendering physician. So remember, in this case, the doctor who is supervising the nurse practitioner is the supervising physician. So again, the qualifier goes in the first element of NM1 segment, and DQ means supervising physician. Second element, entity type qualifier, which is one, which means person. And again, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh element contains last name, first name, middle name, suffix if applicable. Eight, again, it will have XX because the supervising provider's unique identifier is national provider identifier. And in the ninth element of the NM1 segment, it outputs the national provider identifier. Again, the ref segment for 2310D, if applicable, secondary identifier, else blank. And now we come to 2310E. 2310E, guys, remember this is situational. If an ambulance service was involved in this claim, then the ambulance's pickup address will and drop off address will go in loop 2310E and loop 2310F. So let's look at the important elements. There are only two that goes out on loop 2310E and M1 segment. One is PW, which means pickup address. It's a qualifier for pickup address or code for pickup address. And two is non-person, obviously ambulance, so it will be non-person. And then N3 segment outputs the address line information, and N4 segment city, state and zip code. Loop 2310F, same as loop 2310E, but it contains drop-off information. So 45 is the code for drop-off to non-person. N3 contains the address where the patient was dropped, and N4 contains the city, state and zip code. So guys, with this we come to the end of loop 2300 and the subloops like 2310, A, B, C, D, E, F. I hope it is clear, and if you have any doubts, please drop a comment. Until we meet next time, you guys take care. Have a good day. Bye bye.